Hi there, welcome to today's video. In this video I want to talk about something that I've seen recently a lot in the growing community of Tiny Glade. If you don't know, Tiny Glade is a small diorama building game. It's very casual, it's very relaxing, and if you haven't checked it out, I definitely recommend it. Not sponsored, not anything like that. But it's a very relaxing, cozy game where you can easily take bits and blocks and turn it into something quickly good looking. And it's very bare bones, but it has some hidden features that you only find out by mix matching and stuff like that. And there's also, in my opinion, a little bit sad, but creatively could say it's good, but there's a lot of bugs or perhaps unintentional ways to build. Maybe it's intentional, but it doesn't really look intentional, but it's almost like a happy accident where and this happens very often in video games where some people found ways to exploit it or to go around certain things. And Minecraft is a good example where you would like put certain things together and you would kind of mix, merge, and it will look like a new item. And this is for better and worse. It can be a good thing because that leaves the creator and builder with more tools to create. But the downside is it's very finicky and very often time consuming, and it starts kind of a trend where people are like, oh, I have to build this way or else I'm not optimizing my build and it's not looking as good as others. And some people take a healthy dose of, I don't care, I'm just going to build and do my thing anyway. And that's great, but this is not for you. I mean, if you are one of those, feel free to stick around still, but this video is more for those who find themselves creating and they feel very bad for not creating as good as what others make. Back to Tiny Glade, I see a lot of fantastic builds popping up in my YouTube feed, and people are making some really cool builds, and they are like doing these kind of workarounds. I'm not really sure what to call them, but where they kind of merge things together and make new shapes, and the results are really astonishing. But it's discouraging a lot of other builders out there. Even though it's just a casual game, people are starting to take it a little bit more serious, and they're also putting themselves down a lot, where they're like, man, I can't do this. Even one person I saw started saying they're gonna delete the game because their build is not good enough compared to this person's. And the creator came with a really healthy response, like, hey, don't give up, keep going, you know. Don't be discouraged, basically. And that's also my message to you. If you get easily discouraged from seeing other people's art that are better than you, or you perceive as better, or something that you cannot obtain yet. So it takes a healthy dose of also introspection to see this when you're being unhealthy, self-critical with yourself. I've gone through this many times, and sometimes I still go through it. It's a natural thing where we start comparing. Like, we humans, we see something and we want that, and you know, it's very, very typical now, especially when things are about consuming and social media and all that jazz. But when it comes to being an artist, it's very common. It doesn't have to be Tiny Glade or drawing, but generally it's very common to be self-critical and put yourself down for the work you have done, even though you spent hours and hours on it and you were proud for maybe a little bit until you went online and then you became crushed, soul crushed, because you realized your build is not as good as theirs, or objectively or whatever. but I don't think we give ourselves the credit we deserve as artists, because comparing is so, first of all, so unhealthy and so unfair. Other people have not spent the same time as you, they're not on the same journey, and you might have a different beginning than other people do. And I mean, sometimes it might just be that you're not putting enough work, or you're not being patient enough. That's very often the case, but it can also be that you just need extra time, and that's okay. But it's so easy to start beating on yourself for not being good enough. And I want you to recognize this and introspect a little bit. And before you try not to get discouraged, try to see where it comes from. It might come from your childhood, might not. It might come from later, young teens to adult years. Something that happened that made you feel not good enough. And why is that? And why do you feel the need to compare? Again, it's normal, but also, what would a best friend tell you? Would they tell you, man, your art sucks, or your build sucks, you should just uninstall the game? No, that's your mind talking to you. And your mind is very often connected to your past, especially something that stuck with you. That's why when somebody tells you you look ugly, or something about your hairstyle, or something, stuff like that can sit with you for years until you unravel it. So take some time, go into yourself and think about, why am I feeling this way? And is this a healthy response? And once you're aware, you can start changing it. But don't try to change it straight away, but start by being aware, and then try to come with a new, healthier response. Not that's forced, but it's like, hey, I did my best. Give yourself compliments for the effort you put in. And artists or anyone are on different journeys. Some people go out with a bang and they are like really talented, and things just click for them really quickly, and the one thing they try is the one thing they're really good at. But that's not the case for many people. For most, they try to figure out what they enjoy and what they like, and also what they're good at throughout life, and give yourself that space and time to figure that out. Art itself takes a lot of time to find your own voice, your own style, and your style also always changes, right? But also ask yourself, did I put a lot of effort into this? Not that you have to every time, because that can be exhausting, but did you put in the effort, and were you patient with yourself? Especially in the beginning when you're learning something new. That's the most important part, when you're not supposed to, in my opinion, be super self-critical. Be like, hey, I drew for 1 hour today. It's so cool. What did I draw? I draw something I thought about, or maybe I did a study. Who knows? And be proud of that. Be proud of the effort you put in, and not the outcome. That comes over time, and you don't have to be this perfect artist or this professional to start enjoying your own art. Actually, the time that you start to belittle yourself is most likely when you start comparing. You're like, oh man, my art is kind of cool, and then they see something else and they're like, man. Maybe you can relate. I know this myself from personal experience, where I would religiously, right after finishing a work, I would go and post it online, and then I would scroll through, look at my favorite artists, and be like, man, I suck. Why'd I even bother? I should just quit. And it's such an unhealthy response that kills your joy. Your joy in creating. And let me tell you, creating is, in my opinion, something that's decoded into us humans. We love to create. Same like there's certain things like like things for survival, food, procreation, finding water, being aware of threats. There's like the most important ones, right? But there's also like layers to it, where I think if you look at how humans have hobbies, like we love to fish, we love to create, we like, just like our ancestors were creating places to live with your bare hands. Being in a community was life and death. If you weren't in a community, that meant you would not survive. And we might think that we're all so special and advanced, but it's not that many years ago since technology skyrocketed, and not many years since the internet was really catching on. And the internet has had a lot of effects on our mental as a human species. And this is just a complete side note, but don't be so hard on yourself if you find yourself falling for this kind of ads and this kind of manipulative mediums, where like they make you buy things you didn't actually need, right? They use this psychology of how our brain works to use certain colors and shape language to draw you in, so you will more likely to buy. And also, have you ever noticed how hard it is to cancel your subscriptions to stuff like actually, I'm not going to specifically say something, but how it's so hard to cancel certain subscriptions. They use your guilt against you, like you feel bad. And it's very powerful, but I think without going too deep into that, you need to be kinder to yourself if you find yourself always ragging on your work. And sometimes maybe take a healthy step back and detach yourself from your work and be like, hey, I created this, but this is not me. Just because I created something that other people like doesn't mean you're bad, or you don't deserve attention, or you don't deserve to be recognized and cherished. You do. You do. You deserve to be happy, but you give yourself that recognition. If you grew up with not a lot of attention when you were growing up, maybe it's time you give yourself that attention. And when we were kids, we're artists, at least in my childhood, but I know others too. We're like, hey, parents, look at my drawings. And if you didn't get that attention and validation as a kid, that will stick with you until your adult years. So, a good analogy I want to say is like, let your seed grow. Whether it's a goal or an artwork, let it grow and don't give up on it. I think obviously sometimes you can just let it sit and then you can start a new one, and it will be kind of like your knowledge from that first work is something you build on the next one. You don't have to create something perfect now. It's a continuous act of growing. And just like life, art is a journey. And when you're a seed, or your art, or you as an artist, you're like a seed. You don't go shouting at it for not growing fast enough, for not being big already. The reason I say this analogy is because I feel like we can learn so much from nature. And I have this seed that I didn't think would grow, and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to start planting it and see what happens. And lo and behold, it starts growing. I had it like germinating in the fridge for a while, but wouldn't start. I planted it, and then suddenly it started germinating. Growing. And it's standing next to two bigger plants that are much bigger than it. And I'm just thinking, like, when you start something new, it's so easy to look up to these big plants, or let's say big artists. Bear with me here in my analogies, that are much bigger than us and much older, and or more, they've been in the game for longer, or they put in more work. They started sooner. Yeah, some plants grow really quickly, right? And they're in the perfect environment, perfect place, perfect time. But you wouldn't shout at the seed for like, hey, why are you not growing fast enough? Or a seed wouldn't give up growing just because its neighbors are full grown, right? I hope that analogy makes sense. And there's beauty in growth. There's definitely is. And another analogy I also love, that's nature analogy, is nature finds a way. Just like you, when you're trying to find your goals or trying to find your path towards your goal, and you quite don't see where you're going yet. I've struggled with this myself, where I don't know where to go. But if you just follow it, you will find a way. Just like you see a tree trunk growing through a fence, or you see some grass growing through the cracks of some pavement. You will find a way. You will find your way. You don't have to force it, but some patience, consistency, and time, you will get there. And there's not really actually somewhere to get. It's actually more so being with the journey, being content with it. I guess analogy for that is when people play video games or watch a movie for the first time, it's really magical, even though it's the beginning of it, right? I mean, don't rush to the end of the movie. We want to savor the moment and really enjoy it, and bam, it's suddenly over. And that's sometimes how life is. If you only focus on the end, you're going to be miserable, and you're not going to enjoy the present moment, and you're going to end up, at the end, be like, wow, I should have really enjoyed what I had. And it's so easy to look back and be like, man, I had it better back then. But when you're in it, start looking in the future and not enjoying it. So if you're in the beginning journey as an artist, figuring yourself out, I definitely recommend you to try to savor the moment, and really take it in, and don't be too hard on yourself, and don't overload yourself on all these videos on how to do this, how to do that. If you need help doing something and you feel like you're not progressing, then look it up. But don't try to focus on everything at once. Try to do one step at a time, one branch at a time. And then sure, you can go a little bit back and forth, but give your time to grow, and don't be so hard on yourself. Don't be the one shouting at the seed for not growing fast enough. I'm not saying I did shout at my seed. This is just an analogy. But in the past, I was someone who was very self-critical and self-hateful, actually, I would say, about my own art. And it made me quit or take very long breaks several times and not post online. And I think it was very healthy. Took a long break from posting online. Actually, I don't even post online anymore when it comes to social media, except like YouTube and some other platforms. But like actual image posting, no. Like Rarely do that. And I started creating for myself after I took a break, and it was so much better. And finding out what I want to create, and then knowing that whatever I create, someone will enjoy when the time is right. And I guess you could say the algorithm aligns. So yeah, be inspired, not discouraged. That artist or creator you're looking up to started somewhere, and they probably quote unquote sucked at the beginning. And some, they faked their start. They probably went through many channels on YouTube or many drawings. To get good at art, you have to like draw hundreds of drawings, right? Of course, some people, they don't progress, but that's because they don't challenge themselves. But I don't think that's not the subject of this video, how to be optimizing your growth. But this is more to tell you, art is a journey, and be kind to yourself, be self-compassionate. At least I recommend it. It makes the journey much more enjoyable. And I hope you don't stop creating. Whatever you create, doesn't matter. I think it doesn't have to be to make money, to be a professional or anything. But if you just enjoy the act of creating, don't let anyone else tell you anything else about what you should or should not create. Just have a good time, man. Just enjoy it. But if you do have big goals and plans, that's okay too. Go for them. Don't give up. Let your seeds grow. Water it every day. You're always improving, always growing, and it's a never-ending journey. So don't get caught up in trying to get somewhere. The present moment is powerful and enjoyable if you allow it to be so. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope this was informative, and yeah, I hope you liked it. I hope to see you in the next video, and peace.